Welcome to Python for Data 1 Fundamentals Unit 6. We're going to be taking a look at lists, tuples, and dictionaries. Notice the symbols here that I'm using, or the characters I'm using. I've got brackets for lists, I've got parentheses for tuples, and I have the squiggly brackets for dictionaries. So this is a good thing to kind of commit to memory and get used to, so when you see it, you go, oh, I'm dealing with a tuple, I'm dealing with a list, I'm dealing with a dictionary. So to get started, let's go ahead and take a look at lists. List, I like to think of it like a grocery list. You know, it's a list of values that it can be placed into here. It can be any kind of mixture of integers, characters, both. And like we could run this out here and see that when I load this in and I actually decide to show it, notice I don't have to print it. I can actually just call it and say what's in here, and I get the output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can put soy, bread, eggs in if you want to be string. Don't forget you're going to need to use some quotes, and I can actually mix. I got an integer, I have a decimal, and I've got a string. That all works. And on top of that, a list can contain a list. So if I'm going to the store and I need to buy soy, bread, and eggs, I might also have a list for produce, and I have in that list corn, kale, and carrots. And if we print this off, it looks a little bit like this. So we have a list within a list. Right there, there's our list within a list. It can be a little bit more complicated. I want to just pause and talk about dictionaries. You can have a dictionary within a dictionary, so you can have nested dictionaries as well. You know, if you get a little confused on nested dictionaries, just go to a happy place and come back to where it's a list within a list, where it's like, okay, I can kind of access this and understand it, and then go forward again back into dictionaries to see nested dictionaries. Pretty much, if you take a look at the list of things that you can do with a list, it looks a lot like string functions and, you know, messing around with strings and manipulating strings, and it's almost exact. So for example, I've got a list here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm putting it into a array. Now I can actually slice it just like you would a string. So we can see the beginning, we can see a range, and we can see if we go back from 2, so that'd be 4. And if you want to get a refresher, that would be in Unit 1. I'm probably getting a little insight into why this class is a loop and why you'd go through it more than once. So you can actually go into Unit 1 and come back into this unit and actually build this out a little bit further to see the different things you might be able to do for slicing. So the exercise that we have here, this is a reminder of the index and how Python starts counting at 0, is to bring back the first animal. And you can read through this and see what this exercise is. So go ahead and give this a whirl, and you can pause the video now. All right, next up we have a couple other things that we can do with lists. So when appending here, we've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I go in and say, all right, cool, let's see, maybe I want the 5 to be a 6. Obviously we're going to get an error. I've called it out right here. It has to be within the range, and what I could do is I could actually append a 6. And I'm bringing in my, essentially my variable or my object here, and do an append and bring 6 into it, and now we'll actually see that 6 plays out and shows up. So that's how you'd actually do an append, by using append. You can combine lists. So here I've got essentially the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that's loaded into my A, and I have another list here of a 0 and a 0.5. So if I run this, you can see I've combined the lists together. We can check the length of the list using the len. You can get the type. You can slice through and look at the type of just one area. So this is looking at the very first indexed piece, which would be the 1, and it's letting you know that's an integer. We can sort, and now everything is nice and sorted for us. This is a good one to remember. It usually kind of like, how do I sort this? Well, it's down here using sorted. You just do sorted. You have a parameter in here where you can put in an argument of A to sort A. You can also flip it using this argument here of A that we're putting in a parameter of reverse that we want it to be true. So let's go ahead and run that. So now it's flipped it. And if we want to flip it back, we just say, hey, true just doesn't work. We have to actually call out the parameter that we want to change. So the exercise here is you're going to make a list of your favorite foods or bands or plays or musicals or places to visit, just something that you have a favorite of. So you're going to make a list of those, and you're going to display your list, and you're going to add a new value to your list, and then you're going to sort your list. So go ahead and pause the video and work on that. Okay, so this next exercise here, where it's formatting and it's putting something in, and somebody is the first, it's going to come off, I think I have it in, oneth. It's not going to be first. And so it's asking you to figure out how to fix this. This one might take a second. So if you're like, hey, I'll come back to this, I think that's fair, just so you can get through the course and then maybe come back to it and try playing around with it again later. Down here we have some practice and more examples. Here we're obviously just creating a list. This is more having to do something not so fun like account codes or something like that. So we're putting these in here and we're saying, all right, we want to see the first position, what's going on there. We want to see everything really from the first position on. We want to combine two lists together. So here's a list. This is looking at maybe slightly just a tiny baby step closer to more practical. So if we actually ran the master list down here, we can see that it combined those lists. We can say, hey, we've got a new account here, and then we can put the new account in, and we can also append the new account. So these are all the things that we went up, above up here. What's new is deleting. Like if we want to delete that new account, we can use the DEL for deleting one piece from the master list. So whatever is in that position there is going to go away, that new account. Okay, heading down here, we're going to take a look at kind of an interesting little phenomena here. If we have like some teams here that we're loading into My Teams, we'll see how we can actually create a shared reference to the same list. So we have a list here and a list here. This is actually going to create a shared reference between the two. And so now when I change something in the My Teams, it'll also change it in the Your Teams. So if I add Lakers in there, or actually change Heat to Lakers, now when I actually print these out, it's going to show me Lakers. It changed it in both. Conversely, what's really weird is if I go in and I decide to, instead of bringing the whole list and just do like any kind of slicing, any kind of reference to the index, now what's going to happen is it's not going to keep that shared reference. So for here it's saying anything from the beginning to the end. I could even do this and just say, hey, I just want everything from my songs. Now it's a little different. So it's going to bring this in. And that's really the only thing that I'm changing. So in this one, I'm changing this to be proper case. So if we just print out, first of all, let's take a look at it. We print out karaoke, your song, Read My Mind, Karma Police. Print out this one. Yep, they're the same. Okay, so we'd expect this to change in both of them. However, it doesn't. So keep that in mind when you're working with lists, that if you start slicing around in here to change anything, it now breaks that link between the two. So we're going to go right on down to list methods. So we already looked at append, here's extent, insert. You can kind of go through these and take a look at them. The ones that really, no pun intended, but pop out are the pop ones. You end up using those frequently. So let's see how these play out. So we've got a list. This will add an item to the end of a list. This is just the syntax for it. This is going to extend a list. This is going to insert into the list before the position I, so this will go in before. This is going to remove the first item from the list with this value. So if we put in the value X, it'll go through the list and remove it. Probably the important ones here are pop and pop I. So remove and return the last item in the list. That's this one. And you're going to remove and return at the position I in the list. So that's this one right here. So this would be like position 5. It'll remove something from that position. Of course, we have the sort and reverse that we have seen, the index, and I realize I'm kind of reading these off, but it's just to guide you through them because it's pretty easy to just skip past this, and these tend to be pretty important. So when you return an index of the first item in the list with the value X, so this is going to search through and go, okay, I found X. So if you want the first value to be something like P, then it'll go through the list and look for that and then return the first time it shows up. This will count the number of times that it shows up in the list. So here's some examples. We're going to load some values into vowels. We're going to append the 7 and actually show it. So you can see, okay, 7 showed up. We've already seen append work. Now we're going to try and insert. So if we put the insert in here, we've now got 32. 0 doesn't need to go in because it doesn't really show up. But let's go ahead and do pop because pop is interesting. So as a reference again, this is going to take off the last one of the list. So it took off 7. If we do this again, it should take off 16. There it goes. It's gone. If we do this one, yep, it's going to take away 32. There it goes. It's gone. And then this one will actually remove what you put in here. So we're saying, hey, go ahead and remove 16. And, oh, 16 is already gone. So I had a longer list. So let's go ahead and put in 4. I'm going too fast for myself. All right, there we go. So now 4 is gone. So here's the exercise. I'd like you to sort short names in reverse alphabetical order. And here's the sample output. So I've given you the short names. I realized that this is like, wait a second, you went back, you did this at the beginning. I know, I did this on purpose. So without scrolling back, see if you can remember how to sort. Next up, we have another exercise here. You're going to create a list of the first of your names of your family members. Print the name of the last person in the list, and then you're going to add a new member to your family. You can make it a celebrity. Change the name of the new person to lowercase using the string method lower. Oh my gosh, there's all kinds of callbacks to the first unit. And then we're going to sort the list in reverse alphabetical order. And by the way, it is a-okay to go back and look in the first unit and kind of look around and look these things up. But try to stretch yourself first and see if you can remember it. Get a couple of error messages. Okay, next we're going to take a look at stride, which allows us to create some skips within what you bring back. So here I've created a list that goes 1 through 12. So if we go ahead and run this and we say, all right, let's go ahead and take a look from start to end. So we're going to say, no, don't need to really put anything in there, to be honest. Could put a 0 if we want. There we go, brings everything in. So how stride works is like, let's say we want to do start to end. We can go 0, leave this blank, and then for our stride we could say 2. What this should do is give us everything from start to end, but it's skipping every 2. So we've got 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Fantastic. You can kind of flip this around, and I'll let you play around with these with stride, but that's the idea, is it's allowing you to skip. You want to be careful with your syntax. So for example, here if I'm starting off and I'm saying, okay, I want to begin from the beginning of my list and bring that back. I really want everything to come back. It would look something like this. You did have the 0 there. Or you could say, well, I want to start from the 4th position and I want to end on the 9th position and I want to stride by 2. It looks something like that. So we can run this. 5, 7, and 9. So stride is a hidden little gem. If you need it, you definitely need it, and this is something to kind of play around with and remember that it is available to you. All right, this is probably the shortest part of the class. I've seen white papers, I've seen tons of information on this, and I've decided, you know, if you want to go out and Google it, you can. Maybe I'm being a little bit funny, but tuple is the same as a list, but it can't be changed. So I'm going to leave it at that. Kind of keep that in mind. Tuples end up being in our databases quite a bit that we're bringing back, and they're just things that can't be changed. The big difference here is you are going to be using your parentheses. Obviously there's more to it, but it's kind of some repeats. You just can't change them though. You can't delete, you can't remove, you can't add to. So that's something to keep in mind with tuples. And one of the other reasons why I keep this a little bit simplified is because dictionaries are coming up. And if you do want to find out more about tuples, there's definitely a lot of information out there. So without further ado, let's get into dictionaries. Dictionaries can sometimes be a roadblock for people. They can kind of pause people a little bit. So if you need to go grab a snack or take a break and grab like some water or something, I think now is a good time to do that. With a dictionary, you have a key value pair. So you have a key, which is like, well, for lack of a better term, we'll say it's like a primary key. And then next to it, you have the value. So key value pair. Another way to think about it is a key could be like if you're going to the grocery store and you're looking at lists, because that was our kind of analogy. So an apple may be on your list. Well, how much does that apple cost? Well, the apple costs like $1. Okay, so the dollar is the value, the key is the apple. So you have a key value pair. In this example here, if you're not a fan of Arrested Development, you may not get some of what I'm doing here, but if you have ever watched it, this is based off of a TV show. So we've got a family here, and the dad is the key, and the value is George Sr. The mom is the key, and Gangi is the value, and the size of the family is a key, and the value is 2. You can see that the key and the value, when they're strings, are going to be in single quotes or double quotes. That works fine. When it's an integer, again, you're following those rules where you don't need to do that. They're also separated by a colon. So you have the key over here, the value over here. You have a comma for the next one. You have a key over here, a value over here. You have a comma for the next one. Key over here and a value over here separated by the comma. And you do have the squiggle brackets here to make that all come together. So if we run this, we can see that we've created a dictionary here with our key value pairs. We can check the length of it using len, which we've used plenty of times already, so we'll just run that. And we've got the length of 3 for the family. So we can also look up different keys to see what the values are. You can see in here I actually haven't changed this. I've broken my own rules within this class by doing inline commenting. My old example was of Venture Brothers, and nobody ever got it. So we'll say, you know, this should be George Sr. And as a matter of fact, just to make it, just to prove a point, let's put it up here where it belongs. More likely to change it if it's up here. I do have a lot more end lines in here, but what are you going to do? All right, so running this one, we go ahead and run the key. We get back the value George Sr. We'll add a new entry. So we don't have this entry yet up here. We have a family pet. So here we have the family, which is our dictionary. We're going to add the key of pet, and we're going to have the value equal mother. So this is not the mom, by the way. For fans of the show, this is a good trivia if you can think of who the pet is who's named Mother. So we can see that we've added the pet Mother. I'll give you the answer now. It was Buster's turtle that he named Mother. All right, so heading on down here, we're going to go to some other keys. Keys must be unique. So this is going to edit the current one. So if we go in here and we say the family pet and we say equals ostrich, it's going to overwrite the family pet. So if we take a look at family again, and we actually run this whole thing, we will see that the pet is now an ostrich and not the turtle. I don't know if the ostrich had a name. Let's keep moving on. Let's go ahead and delete the family pet. So we're going to use del and then family and then the pet in brackets here, and that'll remove the family pet from the family. That's how you remove a key. And so if we take a look at this again, we'll just run this one down here. Yep, it's gone. One of the things that kind of throws things off a little bit is, remember when we were adding the pet, we can look in some of our over here, when we added the pet, the size of the family didn't increase. Nope, I have this in here manually. So be aware of that, because now the family size would have been 3 if we're counting pets. So in this section here, we're going to be entering, we've got kids, and we're going to enter some multiple values into the key. So we've got kids, and we're going to go ahead and put in Michael, Lindsay, and Job. And then we'll print the family up so we can see the results over here. And indeed, these are now, it's like a list here, or you could also put a tuple in here. So you have multiple values paired with a key. It's kind of hard to get this up here. You can sort of see it now maybe, but sometimes when you see the results, you're like, okay, I see what's going on here. We've got a list that's part of a key. So this is the key and then the value. So you have a key value pair. If we go back to the apple at the store example, your apple is the key and the value might be that it's $1. It's got 0.08% tax, it's so many calories. You could have multiple values associated with one key, essentially. Here's some useful methods. You can show all the keys that you have associated with the dictionary. You can show all the values that you have associated with the dictionary, and you can show any kind of tuples that you have associated with it, or it shows them as tuples. So what I'd like you to do is try to print the name of the mom, change the size to 5, add Tobias to the list of kids, and then add the family dictionary grandkids. So we need to add a grandkids key with 2 values in there, George Michael and maybe. So this is one person, George Michael. See if you can write the dictionary to a CSV. There is an import CSV that allows you to do some writes to a CSV. Again, this class doesn't cover everything, so you will need to do some research on your own. And this is a great stopping point to just go, okay, how would I write this to a CSV, and give that a try, and then see if you can add some of that to your own notes and to your own workbook. Next up here we have some dictionary methods that you can use. We've gone through some of these similar types of things with strings and lists. They're very kind of similar. You basically have a dictionary and you can clear. This removes all the items from the dictionary. What is this doing here? Let's move it over where it belongs. And then we have a get with the key in the default, and essentially what this does is it returns the key entry from the dictionary. Otherwise it'll just return the default. Here it allows you to update. This is kind of a merge function where you can take existing entries from one dictionary and put it into another. If they're the same, then it will overwrite them, and then pop is going to be a remove. So you know, you can take these and practice and play around with them with the Arrested Development family here, or with what you've actually done in your exercises. Speaking of exercises, we're back to the overall project. So if you're working on the skill builder, if you have turned it into maybe a reference as well, maybe you created a menu that says, hey, press 1 for skill builder, press 2 for a quick reference guide, press 3 for quiz. How would you go back, and obviously we have lists in your skills, so you've listed out your skills. Maybe you could put them into different families, as it were, like you have the math skills, the scripting skills, and then you also have key value pairs, right? So you have the skill, and then you have, which would be the listed skill, and then you have the value of how you're rating yourself, and then that family would be under like loops or lists or dictionaries or writing to files. So be thinking along those lines, review your code and see how you can incorporate lists and dictionaries. Now we're going to look at loops coming up in the next unit, and that's going to help you out considerably when you're going, well, how do I update some of these lists? And so don't get too frustrated about trying to do any updates at this point, but maybe just how would I actually capture the data as lists. All right, good luck, and I'll see you in the next unit.